In the year 2004, I was setting everything in motion to go to the United States to continue my postgraduate education. But life had a different path for me, and I ended up in Madrid, Spain. It was the first time I'd ever gone to Europe, and it blew my mind. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced. Boom! Cześć ludzie! What's up people? Hola, VIGO'S dad here. Welcome to another episode. The beauty of cultures is that sometimes we think we've been exposed enough to them that we understand everything or almost everything, but it's not the case all the time. For example, Latinos, we think we have the Americans, kind of figure it out. But when it comes to Europeans, that's another ball game that we don't know what the heck is happening. So today I'm gonna tell you some things that Latinos don't understand about Europeans. Because of the proximity, I believe that most of us Latinos are a little bit more acquainted with the United States. Unless you're from Argentina or Uruguay, where I believe that like 95% of their population is either, European or of European descent. But we have been exposed a lot longer to Americans and their culture and their awkwardness or their customs. We sometimes have adapted some of them, even if they are not part of our own culture, like Halloween. So we understand, we can crack that code. We know what language they're speaking. Well, I mean, not English, language as in, how they communicate. You get it. One correction though. Notice that I used the word American, but that is not entirely correct. The United States have, made use of the word American to refer to themselves incorrectly, but they are just located in the North American continent, so they are technically North Americans, but they also share it with Canada and Mexico, so saying North Americans to refer to the US is complicated. So for now, let's keep it simple. We're gonna say Americans, even though we know it's not correct. A lot of our countries are heavily influenced by the US, be it by commerce or politics or pop culture. But when it comes to Europeans, that's something completely different, and many Latinos don't understand what the heck is happening. There's just no way that I'm gonna come out of this episode unscarred. I just don't know why I do this type of things. Disclaimer time. I know that the term Europeans is a geographical term. It's countries located in the European continent. And when it comes to cultures and customs, many countries in Europe have nothing in common. Like Spain has very little in common with, Finland or something. But it's important to understand that to Latinos, you guys seem like one thing, the European continent. Come on, let's face it, kind of like you guys with us and Latinos, we are all the same. We all eat burritos and, like enchiladas, right? So for this episode, I tried to use examples that would be kind of like general for most Europeans, but still it's gonna happen that there are some countries that are gonna say like,
we don't do that. What is he talking about?
So bear with me, as with all my episodes, watch it, with a little bit of fun and lightness to it, okay? The first thing that Latinos don't understand about European is the tasteless food. This one is a little bit of an inflammatory one, isn't it? I can already see the comments from Spanish and from Italian saying, what is he talking about? Yes, Mediterranean cuisine is very rich, it's very tasty, it's very healthy, but that's just one example. There are many cuisines in Europe, and even Mediterranean food lacks a little bit of that, gusto. Latinos are very well known for using a lot of spices that enhance the flavor of the food quite a lot. Cumin, coriander, parsley, oregano, onion, garlic, all of that together combined with a lot of salt. The salt thing is so that every time that Carolina goes to my country, she's like, oh wow, this is, my tongue itches because it's very salty. I am actually famous and well known for always adding extra salt to Mama Ella's dishes, even though she cooks amazingly well. She, makes delicious things for us. And I always come with the salt shaker because Latinos eat higher in salt. And it's important to make the distinction that this has nothing to do with the chef. It's just the ingredients. It's the dishes. For example, you compare a traditional Polish dinner, some boiled potatoes with dill and some, kotletes schabowe, and it's super delicious. Of course it is. But, it's gonna be mild in taste compared to your traditional Dominican dinner, like mangú, which is, smashed plantains with a lot of onion and garlic and salt and butter. Latinos cook food with a bunch of ingredients and oils and things. It's not the healthiest thing. I'm not claiming it to be, but the flavors just explode in your mouth. Number 2, why so dark? One thing that I've heard many Latinos comment when they go to Europe for the first time is this, lingering darkness. There's something in the air that feels a little bit like sad and, like quasi-depressive, if you will. And the most interesting thing is that Europeans seem to hold on to it tightly. It's like a badge of honor. But I'm not saying that Europeans walk around sad all the time. There is a level of melancholy that exists that is very foreign to Latinos. We know the stereotypes, right? Latinos are always dancing, always happy, always joyful. That's not true. But it seems that the approach that we have towards difficult moments in life, it's quite different to the way that Europeans deal with it. For us, it seems like we're almost always trying to escape it, trying to find a way to put that, behind us, set it aside. Europeans embrace it. They almost sweat it out until it's completely gone. Although it's actually never gone. Listen to European music, the lyrics, the literature. Dark house by which once more I stand, here in the long and lovely street, doors where my heart was used to beat, so quickly waiting for a hand that can be clasped no more. Behold me, for I cannot sleep, and like a guilty thing I creep at earliest morning to the door. I rest my case. Have you tried cheering up a Latino?
Oh, mi hermano, ¿y qué pasó? ¿Y por qué esa cara tan larga? Ah, papá, problema de la vida, tú sabes. No, pues eso no puede ser así. Vamos a beber un trago, vamos, camine, eso se quita de una vez. Hay que bajarse un trago y ¡pam! De una vez está listo. Venga.
Have you tried cheering up a European? The chances are you're both gonna end up listening to some really depressing music, smoking cigarettes, and drinking a couple of bottles of wine. The third thing that Latinos don't understand about European is all that smoking and drinking. When Carolina moved to the Dominican Republic with me back in 2012, I remember that one of the things that shocked her the most was how little smoking was in the country. Even if you are out and, in some pub or enjoying an evening together, it was surprising to her the little amount of cigarettes that were actually lit. There are some countries in Latin America where the smoking percentage is quite high. For example, Cuba, Chile, Bolivia. I think that 35% of the population are actual smokers, but the rest of Latin America is not too prone to smoking. Dominican Republic, Panama, Ecuador, in those countries, there is less than 10% of the population that are smokers. So imagine the cultural shock to Latinos when they visit any European country and they find that there's so much smoking everywhere. Now things are better because there's a ban to smoke indoors, but still it's very high and it feels to us almost like a trap that you cannot escape. You get out anywhere and in any random corner there's someone or a couple of people smoking cigarettes and we immediately notice it. When I went to Spain for the first time, going to a house party, and you would come back home and all your clothes would smell like cigarettes. That practically never happens in Latin America. Another thing that we don't understand is the drinking. Sometimes I get comments on my channel from Latinos saying, "What are you talking about that we don't drink? What is that about?" And I forgive them because it seems like they've not been to Europe, because the way the Europeans drink is a whole nother level. There is a culture of drinking that in Latin America just doesn't exist. Granted, my friends the Mexicanos can really go up on that tequila, or the Argentinians on that good wine, but still it's an evening thing. And even if you have a glass of wine at night with the dinner, it's not even close to the level of drinking that Europeans do. Here it's like a national sport. Even business meetings have alcohol. If it's in the middle of the day, having some beers or some wine while you discuss business ventures, completely normal. Try that in Dominican Republic. The moment that you try and reach for that wine, people are gonna be like, hacer negocio con este alcohólico, no. It doesn't matter the country. There's not a single social event here in Europe where there's no alcohol involved. If you get invited to a party, dare to show up without bringing some alcohol. Minimum, you would have to bring what you're gonna drink. And still, that's not quite okay. You should bring a little bit extra. In Latin America, it's perfectly fine, to come bring some snacks, some, chips, some, crackers, and yeah, maybe a Coca-Cola or something like that. Not in Europe. Well, I'm not gonna drink tonight, so I don't need to bring any alcohol. You're not gonna drink tonight? But why? That's a question you're not gonna hear from a Latino too often. By the way, let's play a little game. On the comment box below, write to me something that you don't understand about Latinos. Whatever it is. Just write it down and I'll read through them and I'll choose one person and I will give you a proper shout out on next week's episode. Number 4, the children and parent dynamic. I think I told you that Latinos are very family oriented, but when I mean very family oriented, I mean very family oriented. It's not uncommon for, say, young adults, 25, 26, 28, to be living with their parents still if they're not married. It's actually weirder to move out of your parents' house, especially if they live in the same city. Try telling a Latina mom that you're moving out of the house, to live with some friends. ¿A mudarte solo? ¿Con quién? ¿Y para qué? Pero aquí tú tienes todo lo que tú necesitas, mi hijo. In Europe, it's completely the opposite. You are encouraged to move out on your own, get some friends, rent a flat, and start your adventures. And I remember in Austria, there was a friend that was married to an Austrian woman, and it was bewildering to him the fact that they lived a couple of blocks away from her mom, and they would just visit her every couple of months. He was always asking his wife, why don't we just come over there, tonight and pay a visit? And she would always tell him, no, she has her space. I'm not gonna go and intrude her. We book a date to see her next month. Although this is not the case for all European countries. For example, I've noticed that Polish people and Spanish people are really close, really close with their mom and dad and uncles, and still they are encouraged to start their life early and move with a friend and, see what life is all about. Also, Europeans are a little bit more individualistic. For example, when you marry and you start a family, you start your own family. You kind of no longer belong to, your mom and dad's family. I mean, yes, you do, but not really. It's complicated. Whereas in Latin America, it's like we are all one big pile family. It's like, we are the Perez. Sometimes a family of Latinos feels like a sect. You get some weird uncle that comes and start giving you life advice without you, soliciting it. But many times, of course, there are positive things that come of it. And I am no one to judge which one is better. That depends on what you like and what you expect of life. I like a little bit of both approaches. And number 5 is hygiene. Guys, there is no other way to put this. I'm sorry, it is true. Latinos make fun of European hygiene. I know this is not all of you, and if the hat doesn't fit, don't wear it, but let's face it, it's really hard sometimes to ride the tube in many European countries, especially if it's the summer and it gets a little hot. I understand it, it's a weather thing. When it's 3 degrees and you're not sweating, there's no need for you to shower 2 times a day or 3 times a day. But the problem is that that same custom extends all the way to the summer when you get 30-degree weather and you're sweating and you're still not showering 2 times a day. I remember having a conversation with a Greek friend of mine many years ago, and she was telling me that, in the winter, it's not good to shower so much. Once a day is enough because you're showering with hot water and then your pores open up and you get colder. The only thing I heard was shower once a day. This whole conversation derailed into a poll that I held asking my friends from university, how many times a day do you shower? And very quickly, it was not about how many times a day do you shower. It was more like, are you a night shower or a morning shower? And there I was showering 3 times a day, even in the winter. Latin America has many different climates, so I don't really know 100% how are the hygiene habits in places high up in the mountain where it's cold constantly. But I know that in the Caribbean, it gets really hot and sweaty and sticky and humid. So if you don't shower at least 2 times a day, believe me, you're gonna clear the area. There's also the topic of clothing. Latinos, sometimes we overdress too much, especially for the climate, but it is what it is. We are there, in 30-degree weather, wearing suits and ties and, button-down shirts, and we have to make sure that everything is pressed correctly. And it all goes back to when you were a kid. If your mom discovered that you were wearing underwears with holes or socks with, threads coming out, that would be big trouble for you, man. So when a Latino comes to Europe and, you see someone that is wearing just, a hoodie and a jacket that looks like it's not been washed in a couple of months, then it sticks out. We don't understand it. It's a little bit hard for us. But not everything regarding that is good. I believe that, we overdress. I believe that sometimes we're not practical. I get that, especially after I've been living in Europe for many years. Without being disrespectful or trying not to hurt people's sensibilities, Latinos' hygiene habits and Europeans are a bit different. Boom! That's all, guys. That's the end of the episode. I hope you liked it. There are many more things that Latinos for sure don't understand about Europeans, and I'm sure there are a gazillion things that Europeans don't understand about Latinos. Maybe when this whole COVID mess ends, I'm gonna be able to travel freely again and go to different countries in Europe, start interviewing people and asking them different things about what do they think about Latinos. Would that be something you'll be up for? Vigo's Dad Travels. I would love that. If you like the episode, thumbs up, comment below if you feel like it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and share this with a friend or with a family member. See you next week. Bye bye.